G'day trendsetters, I'm John with Gravel Cyclist, coming to you today with a review of a budget gravel/adventure bike. This is the Poseidon X Ambition Dropbar. Now for those folks who are regulars to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel or gravelcyclist.com website, you'll undoubtedly have seen my unboxing and features video of this particular bike. Now since that video has posted, the price on this bicycle has risen from $7.99 US to $8.99 US, but I understand there's a coupon code available that will knock the price back down to US $799. Another thing to mention, this is not the first Poseidon bike I've reviewed. I reviewed their original Poseidon gravel bike. You can check that video out. If so inclined, it's linked in the description below. Now we've covered those bases, it's time to crack on with the review. Recording of this production is about to get interesting. Rain has begun to fall. Hopefully everything stays dry beneath the veranda. Moving on to the bike, you get a very sweet aluminium hydroformed frame with a ton of mounts, which I'll cover later on, and that's matched to an all carbon fiber fork. Now this bike is specifically designed as an all-rounder, and by that I mean gravel roads, pavements, and whatever interesting adventures you decide to throw in the path of this bicycle onto the frame's geometry, which is designed for a more upright position, which is going to be attractive for a lot of riders new to cycling, particularly with a drop bar type configuration. So a more upright and potentially comfortable position. It's a bit stormy out here, isn't it? So let's keep moving forward and continue to break down the specs. Tire clearance is pretty impressive. I'm going to assume this frame and fork can easily fit a 700C by 45mm tire. The Groupset at the heart of this package is the Microshift, I said Microshift, Advent X, which is a 10-speed budget-oriented group set, but it's designed for cycling way beyond the paved trail. You get mechanical shifting, 10 speeds in all. It's a one-bike configuration, and these are short pull brake levers. Now when I say short pull, I'm talking about the lever actuation ratio to the mechanical disc brakes. So no hydraulics. This is a mechanically actuated disc brake system. And in my experience, these can be pretty decent. They're not going to be on the same level of performance as hydraulic, but good enough for most circumstances. Gearing on this bicycle is low out of the box, which is appealing, particularly if you live in a very hilly area. The Pro Wheel Charm 170mm, that's the universal length for all sizes of this bicycle, is fitted with a 38-tooth no-drop 1x chainring, and that's paired on the back end to a 10-speed 11 to 48 Advent X cassette. So a big spread of gears. Now obviously that's not going to appeal to riders who are riding in flatter terrain, but you could likely swipe out the cassette and get yourself a tighter ratio and so on. The crankset turns on an English-fed bottom bracket, which is square taper. Now square taper is an older standard. It still works fine circa 2023, but you generally won't find that standard on higher end bikes. It's getting a bit moist around here. We'll keep pressing on. Over to the cockpit parts, which are mostly by Poseidon. At the front end, you get a 46cm, very wide, flared handlebar with 24 degrees of flare at the drops. Now, this is a standard size for every size of Poseidon you can purchase. Incidentally, this is a size medium Poseidon X Ambition drop bar. Now, I'll say this straight away, this is not my type of handlebar, and I don't think it's going to favour some riders who might be smaller in stature. But the good thing is you can swap this handlebar out if so desired, but something to keep in mind. The stem is also by Poseidon, and its length will depend on which size bike you purchase. Over to the C-post, which is an aluminium 27.2mm affair. Love that size, gives you a little bit of flex and so on. Also unbranded is the saddle, which might be by Poseidon, I don't really know, but it's a nice looking saddle and looks pretty comfy. One interesting thing about this frame, I mentioned it's hydroformed aluminium. All of the routing is internalized inside the frame. Now, I'm not talking about the handlebar area. All of the cables enter the frame, so it's a really nice, clean look. Some riders won't favour that, but you have to admit, it does keep a lot of the gunk and junk at bay if you're riding on sludgy, muddy roads and so on. And with full-length housings, there's no real concern that mud and so on is going to affect your braking or shifting performance. Onto mounts, there is a ton of mounts on this bike. On the size small, you get 3 boulder cage mounts. Every other size, you get 4. So you get 1 on the seat tube as you would usually expect. On the down tube, you get 2 bottom mounts on this size medium, and beneath the down tube, the what I like to call cow catcher position for obvious reasons. I do wish there was a mount atop the top tube. There would be an icing on the cake for this bike. Other mounts include, well, look on the fork. You've got fork mounts, so if you desire to mount a bottle cage there, pretty handy. If you want to go bike packing, slack packing, etc. And there's also fender mounts, etc. The wheel set on this bike, well, I assume it's a Poseidon wheel set. It's unbranded, but there are 32 spokes front and rear. No nonsense. It's not a light wheel set. It's a pretty stout training type wheel set, or a good starter wheel set if you prefer. I believe it can be converted to tubeless, but this wheel set relies on the older quick release standard, so no through axles. Internal rim width on this wheel set is 19 millimeters, and the bike arrives with Kenda Happy medium tyres and 700C by 40 millimeters configured with tubes. Now, I have not had time to tinker with converting this bike to tubeless, but disc brake rotors, they're by Tektro, 160 millimeters front and rear. You can pay for an upgrade to go through axle on this bike. I do have the thru-axle kit, which consists of another fork and different dropouts at the rear end. So for now, I'm going to present to you the bike as you will receive it, assuming you're paying the US $8.99 or US $7.99 purchase price. And then I'll show you the swap process and riding the bike in the other configuration with thru-axle wheels, etc. With all that wrapped up, now it's time to find out how the standard configuration of the Poseidon X Ambition Dropbar rides. Weighing 25.6 pounds or 11.6 kilos in standard configuration with 2 King titanium bottle cages and Shimano XTR 9000 series pedals, the X Ambition is decently light when you consider the price point. At this weight, the bike will certainly not set their world ablaze with its performance, but its excellent aluminium frame and budget shifting components overall make for a good starter bike without breaking the bank. Geometry of this bike does not err on the side of performance, so don't expect this bike to have a racy feel, but it's stable and could have a comfortable ride. The letdown being here is the stock tube and tyre configuration on rough roads. This configuration is screaming for a tubeless wheel conversion, which would enable you to drop the tyre pressure much lower, avoiding the risk of pinch flats. Most wheels can be converted to tubeless, so that may be an option to consider if you choose this configuration. The flared handlebar is not going to work for everyone. I really cannot stand them. In fact, this is how they make me feel. Riding with a massive and unnecessary frontal area that I just don't see the point of. Sure, flares can be comfortable at the drops, but the angle of the shift and brake levers is always compromised, except on Zip's Explore handlebar. I also feel Poseidon should have offered a couple of different sizes of this bar on these bikes, because this bar is crazy wide and I cannot imagine a smaller rider trying to make a 46cm flared bar work. Microshift Advent X shifters functionally work well, and shifting actuation is an easy enough process, and I'm pleased to say they have stayed in adjustment. The rear derailleur wins no style points, but its clutch is handy on rough roads, although the very wide cassette ratio is going to be a bother if you're riding flatter terrain or riding with friends and the pace changes up and down. Braking performance is nowhere on the same planet as good hydraulic brakes, and you must bed the pads in on these rotors, meaning perform a few hard stops in the parking lot before taking this bike for a serious ride. With that said, be wary of descending steep grades. The frame and fork really are excellent, tons of mounts, and I love the hydroformed tube shapes. It gives the bike a much more premium feel. Despite many of my gripes about some of the components on this bike, this is a frame and fork you could easily upgrade to further improve. Overall, a nice starter bike or a solid base for a cheap bike packing rig, especially if you get $100 off the retail price. So there you have it, trendsetters, my review of the Poseidon X Ambition drop bar adventure bike designed for the gravelly roads, less traveled and more. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel for no bullshit gravel bike reviews, other product reviews, ride experience videos, and my favourite, general madness. Uh-oh, we've got 10,000 toy dogs. What's going on here? There's a lot of disorderly conduct. Yeah, as all of it is released to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.